people. My marriage to Laura seems like the kind of relationship everyone dreams of. We've been together for 10 years, solid, drama-free years, where I honestly thought we were invincible. Our friends used to joke about how we were relationship goals, and I was proud of that. I felt like I had hit the jackpot with her. Laura had this way of lighting up a room. She's smart, funny, and has this energy that makes everyone gravitate toward her. She's always been the life of the party, the one who could turn any boring evening into a great memory. And for me, she wasn't just my wife, she was my best friend, my biggest cheerleader, and the person I thought I could trust above anyone else. Every year, we'd make a big deal out of our anniversary. Laura loved planning things, and she always went the extra mile. Romantic dinners, heartfelt letters, surprise weekend getaways. It was like she had a gift for making those days unforgettable, and I loved that about her. It made me feel seen and appreciated, like she genuinely cared about making our life together special. This year, as our 10th anniversary approached, Laura was unusually excited. She insisted that she handle all the planning herself. "I want to make this one extra special," she said, flashing me that smile that always melted my heart. "Something you'll never forget." I didn't question it. Why would I? Laura had never given me a reason to doubt her. If anything, I felt lucky, grateful to have someone who cared enough to make such a big deal out of our relationship. I even started to feel guilty that I hadn't thought of doing something grand myself. She seemed so genuinely excited, so invested in making it perfect. Looking back now, I realize how blind I was. All those moments when I thought everything was fine were just the calm before the storm. That perfect picture I had of us was already starting to crack. I just didn't know it yet. Things started to feel off a few weeks before our anniversary. At first, I chalked it up to stress. Laura had been working on a big project at the office, staying late more often than usual. She'd come home tired, distracted, and barely interested in the little things we used to enjoy together, like catching up over dinner or watching a show before bed. "Work's just crazy right now," she said one night when I asked if everything was okay. "I'll be back to normal once this project is done, I promise." I believed her. Why wouldn't I? We'd been through busy times before, and she'd always managed to bounce back. But something about this felt different. She wasn't just tired, she was distant. Her phone, which she'd always left lying around without a second thought, was suddenly glued to her side. I'd catch her smiling at it sometimes, typing furiously, and when I'd ask who she was talking to, she'd shrug it off. "Oh, just work," she'd say with a casual wave of her hand. Or, "Megan, you know how she gets when she's stressed." At first, I didn't think much of it. But then there was the message. It happened one morning while Laura was in the shower. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, lighting up the screen. I glanced at it, expecting to see Megan's name or a work notification. Instead, it was a message from someone named Alex. It read, "I can't wait to see you." My stomach dropped. For a moment, I just stared at the screen, trying to make sense of it. Who the hell was Alex? And why was he so excited to see my wife? 1,000 explanations raced through my mind, each one worse than the last. Maybe it was an old friend or a coworker, someone she'd known for years. Maybe it was innocent. But the way my gut twisted told me otherwise. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I put her phone back where it was and tried to act normal. When she came out of the shower, towel wrapped around her, she gave me a quick kiss on the cheek and smiled. "What are you up to today?" she asked, like everything was fine. I forced a smile. "Not much," I said, my voice steady even though my heart was pounding. That day, I couldn't stop thinking about the message. Was it just my imagination, or was there something going on? I decided to keep my eyes open, to pay more attention to the little things I might have missed before. If Laura was hiding something, I needed to know. And deep down, I already knew I wasn't imagining it. Something was wrong. After seeing that message from Alex, I couldn't unsee it. Every interaction with Laura felt like a performance, like she was trying to keep me distracted while hiding something beneath the surface. I decided that I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. Instead, I started watching more closely. Laura's late nights at work suddenly seemed a lot more suspicious. She'd come home with the same excuses, the project's taking longer than expected, or we had to go over some last-minute changes, but her stories never added up. One night, she claimed she was at the office until 10 p.m., but when I casually mentioned it to her coworker Megan during a group dinner, Megan looked confused. "We were out by 7, she said. Laura quickly laughed it off, saying, "Oh, I stayed back to wrap up a few things." The seed of doubt grew bigger. A few days later, I decided to take a different approach. If she wasn't going to tell me the truth, I'd find it myself. That morning, she mentioned she'd be meeting a client for coffee. I waited until she left, grabbed my car keys, and followed her. I wasn't proud of it, but I needed answers. Sure enough, she didn't go to a client meeting. She went to a little cafe downtown, a place we'd been to once or twice on our date nights. I parked across the street and watched as she walked in, her phone in hand, texting furiously. A few minutes later, a man joined her at the table. Alex. I didn't know how I knew it was him, but I just did. They sat close, leaning in toward each other, laughing like they shared some inside joke. She touched his arm at one point, and he didn't pull away. The sight of them together made my stomach churn. I wanted to storm in there, confront them both, and demand an explanation. But I held back. If I went in now, I wouldn't get the full picture. Instead, I sat in my car and took a few photos from a distance. They looked happy, comfortable, like this wasn't the first time they'd done this. When Laura finally left, she had a bounce in her step, her smile brighter than it had been in weeks. She didn't even notice my car as she walked by. That night, she came home and acted like nothing had happened. She kissed me hello, asked about my day, and even made dinner. I've been thinking about the anniversary, she said casually as we ate. I'm planning something special. You'll love it. Her enthusiasm felt like a slap in the face. How could she sit there planning our anniversary while sneaking off to see another man? It was like she thought she could have it both ways. A loving husband at home and some fling on the side. But I wasn't ready to confront her yet, not until I had all the pieces in place. That evening, Laura seemed more cheerful than she had in weeks. It was like she had flipped a switch, suddenly putting on the perfect wife act. She kept talking about the anniversary plans, dropping little hints to keep me intrigued. I've got something really special planned, she said as we sat on the couch after dinner. You'll love it, I promise. Her enthusiasm felt hollow. I couldn't stop picturing her with Alex at the cafe, laughing like they didn't have a care in the world, but I kept my expression neutral, playing along. I'm sure whatever you're planning will be amazing, I said, forcing a smile. Over the next few days, she threw herself into the preparations. She spent hours on the phone, making calls and organizing details. I even overheard her telling one of her friends, Jake deserves the best. This year is going to be unforgettable. The irony wasn't lost on me. What struck me the most was how normal she acted. She was putting so much effort into this anniversary, into maintaining the illusion of a perfect marriage, that I started to wonder if she felt any guilt at all. Did she even realize how obvious her lies had become? Or was she so confident in her deception that she thought I'd never figure it out? I decided to play along, keeping my suspicions to myself. If she wanted to put on a show, I'd let her, but I was done being a passive observer. While she planned our special day, I was quietly making plans of my own. The night before the anniversary, she was buzzing with excitement. You're going to love tomorrow, she said as we got ready for bed. I've been working on this for weeks. I nodded, hiding the anger simmering just beneath the surface. I can't wait, I said, keeping my voice steady. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't help but wonder what her endgame was. Did she think a fancy dinner and some grand gesture would erase her betrayal? Or was this just another way to distract me, to keep me from noticing the cracks in her perfect facade? One thing was certain. Whatever she had planned for our anniversary, it wasn't going to end the way she expected. The day of our anniversary finally arrived. I woke up to the smell of fresh coffee and pancakes. Laura was already in the kitchen, humming softly to herself. Happy anniversary, she beamed, leaning in to give me a kiss. For a moment, it felt like old times, and I almost let myself relax. Happy anniversary, I replied, forcing a smile. You seem excited. I am, she said, her eyes sparkling. Everything's set for tonight. It's going to be amazing. She wouldn't give me any details, insisting that it was a surprise. Throughout the day, she was a whirlwind of activity, cleaning the house, setting up decorations, and making calls. I offered to help, but she shooed me away. Just relax and enjoy your day, she insisted. By the evening, our home had been transformed. Streamers hung from the ceiling, candles were lit everywhere, and a slideshow of our photos played softly on the TV screen. She'd even hired a caterer to handle the food. Our closest friends began to arrive, each one greeting us with hugs and warm wishes. Laura, this is incredible, our friend Mike exclaimed, taking in the decor. You really outdid yourself. She laughed, a bit bashfully. Well, 10 years is a big deal. I wanted to make it special. As the night went on, I found myself mingling with friends, sipping on wine, and trying to push aside the nagging doubts in my mind. Laura was the perfect hostess, attentive, engaging, making sure everyone was having a great time. She'd glance over at me occasionally, her smile genuine, and for a moment, I'd wonder if I had been mistaken about everything. During dinner, Laura stood up to make a toast. I just want to thank everyone for being here to celebrate this milestone with us, she began, her voice steady. Jake, these past 10 years have been the best of my life. You've been my rock, my confidant, my everything. I couldn't imagine going through life without you by my side. Everyone raised their glasses, echoing her sentiments. I felt a lump in my throat. Could I have been wrong about her? Maybe the meeting with Alex was innocent. Maybe there was an explanation I hadn't considered. After dinner, she dimmed the lights and turned everyone's attention to the slideshow. Photos of us from over the years flickered on the screen. Our wedding day, vacations, random candid moments, the room filled with laughter and the occasional "aww" as our friends reminisced with us. As the slideshow ended, Laura took my hand. I have one more surprise, she said softly. She led me to the center of the room where a small table held a beautifully wrapped box. Go on, open it, she urged, her eyes shining. I unwrapped the box carefully, aware that everyone was watching. Inside was an envelope. I opened it to find 2 tickets to Paris, the city I'd always dreamed of visiting. Laura, I don't know what to say, I murmured, genuinely touched. She smiled warmly. You've always wanted to go, and I thought our 10th anniversary was the perfect time to make it happen. Our friends erupted in cheers and applause. For a moment, the weight on my chest lifted. Maybe this was real. Maybe she truly wanted to make things right, and I'd been letting paranoia get the best of me. As the party continued, I felt myself relaxing for the first time in weeks. Laura stayed by my side, her laughter genuine, her touch reassuring. I began to think that perhaps I'd been overthinking everything, that maybe there was an innocent explanation for Alex. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed her phone light up on the kitchen counter. She didn't see it, but I did. A message preview popped up. Can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again? It was from Alex. My heart sank all over again. The message on her phone hit me like a freight train. Can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again? From Alex. My stomach churned as I stood there frozen, staring at the screen. The noise of the party faded into the background, replaced by the pounding of my heartbeat in my ears. Just when I had started to believe that maybe I was wrong, that maybe Laura was truly trying to make things right, reality had a cruel way of reminding me of the truth. Reality had a cruel way of reminding me of the truth. I took a deep breath and stepped back into the living room. Laura was standing in a circle of friends, laughing at something Mike had said. She looked so carefree, so genuinely happy, that for a second I almost doubted what I had just seen. Almost. Jake, there you are, she called out, noticing me. Come on, it's time for the big reveal. The room quieted as Laura took my hand and led me back to the table where the box had been. She stood next to me, smiling brightly, and addressed the room. First of all, thank you all for being here tonight. Celebrating 10 years with Jake has been a dream, and I couldn't have done it without the support of all of you. She turned to me, her eyes glistening. Jake, I wanted to do something extra special for you tonight. Something that shows you how much I love you. She handed me another envelope, smaller this time. Open it, she said softly. I slid my finger under the seal and pulled out a card. Inside was a handwritten note. Jake, thank you for being my best friend, my partner, and my everything. I wanted to make your dream come true, so this is just the beginning. I can't wait to spend the next chapter of our lives with you. Everyone around us clapped and cheered as Laura wrapped her arms around me. You deserve this, she whispered in my ear. I smiled, but it felt hollow. My heart was heavy, the weight of her betrayal drowning out the moment. If the message from Alex hadn't been on her phone just minutes ago, I might have believed her. I might have fallen for the act. But now, all I could think about was the lies she was weaving, the double life she was leading. As the applause died down, Laura turned to the crowd and said, There's more! Jake, why don't you tell everyone about our Paris trip? I nodded, forcing a smile, and held up the tickets. Laura's outdone herself. She planned a dream trip to Paris for us, something I've always wanted. The room erupted in cheers again, but my mind was elsewhere. While Laura soaked in the admiration of our friends, I quietly slipped away, making my way to the kitchen. Her phone was still there, sitting innocently on the counter. My hands trembled as I picked it up and unlocked it using the password I'd guessed weeks ago. The thread with Alex was still open. The message I'd seen wasn't the only one. Last night was perfect. I can't wait to see you again soon. Don't forget to delete these messages before Jake sees them. I clenched the phone in my hand, anger rising in my chest. How could she stand in front of all these people, showering me with gifts and affection, while texting another man about their time together? How could she lie so easily, so convincingly? The party continued behind me, laughter and music filling the house. But all I could hear was the echo of her betrayal. Standing in the kitchen, staring at Laura's phone, I felt trapped in a storm of emotions. Anger, betrayal, sadness, they all swirled together, making it hard to breathe. But most of all, I felt conflicted. How could someone who seemed so thoughtful, so loving, be the same person who was sneaking around with another man? I put the phone back where I found it and walked back into the living room, the mask of a happy husband firmly in place. Laura was still basking in the glow of everyone's admiration, her smile so radiant that I almost doubted what I had just seen. Almost. As the night went on, I started questioning myself. What if the messages with Alex didn't mean what I thought they did? What if she'd realized her mistake and cut things off with him? People make mistakes. Maybe she was trying to make up for hers with this grand anniversary celebration. Maybe she truly loved me and wanted to fix things. But then the other part of me, the part that had watched her sit with Alex in that cafe, that had seen her texting him when she thought I wasn't looking, screamed that I was being played. The tickets to Paris, the slideshow, the heartfelt toast, they weren't acts of love. They were distractions meant to keep me from looking too closely at what was really going on. By the time the party ended and the last guest left, I was emotionally exhausted. Laura shut the door behind our friends, turned to me, and smiled. "What did you think?" she asked, her voice soft and hopeful. "It was amazing," I said, my voice betraying none of the turmoil inside me. She stepped closer, wrapping her arms around me. "I wanted to show you how much I love you, Jake. You've always been my everything." I stepped away and embraced. "My wife's favorite thing I've ever heard," she said. "I wanted to show you how much I love you, Jake. You've always been my everything." I hugged her back, but it felt mechanical. Part of me wanted to believe her, to let this night erase all the doubts and suspicions, but I couldn't. Not after what I'd seen. That night, as we lay in bed, I stared at the ceiling while Laura slept beside me. My mind raced with questions. Could I forgive her? Could I trust her again? Was this anniversary a turning point? Or was it just another layer of lies? "Yeah, I love you." After a minute, I held her close, saying, "Could I forgive her?" Did I trust her again? When I finally drifted off to sleep, I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. I had to confront her. Tomorrow, everything would come to light. The next morning, I woke up before Laura. As she slept soundly, looking so peaceful, I felt a pang of sadness. How had it come to this? 10 years of marriage, and now I was lying awake, plotting how to confront her about her lies. When she finally stirred, she stretched and smiled at me. "Good morning," she said softly, leaning in for a kiss. I couldn't bring myself to reciprocate. "Morning," I said flatly, pulling away. "We need to talk." Her smile faded instantly, replaced by a look of confusion. "About what?" I reached over to the nightstand, picked up my phone, and opened the photo I'd taken of her and Alex at the cafe. I handed it to her without a word. Her face went pale. She stared at the screen for a long moment, her hands trembling slightly. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. "That doesn't matter," I replied, my voice calm but firm. "What matters is that you tell me the truth. Who is Alex, and why are you meeting him behind my back?" She put the phone down and buried her face in her hands. "Jake, Her voice cracked, and for a moment I thought she was going to come clean. But then she looked up at me, her expression defiant. "He's just a friend. We've been working on a project together at work, and I didn't tell you because I knew you'd overreact." "Overreact?" I repeated, my anger bubbling to the surface. "Laura, I've seen the messages. I've seen the way you look at him. This isn't about work, and you know it." She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "You're blowing this out of proportion. Nothing happened between us, I swear." I stared at her, my chest tightening. Even now, when she was caught red-handed, she was trying to lie her way out of it. "Stop," I said, my voice rising. "Just stop. I saw the message from him last night. Can't stop thinking about last night. Explain that." Her eyes widened in panic, and for a moment she was completely silent. Then finally she broke. "Okay," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We kissed. Once. It didn't mean anything." I laughed bitterly. "Didn't mean anything. Laura, you don't send messages like that after a meaningless kiss. How stupid do you think I am? She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Jake, please," she begged. "I messed up. I was confused, and I didn't know what I wanted. But now I do. I want you. I love you." "Do you?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Because it doesn't feel like it. It feels like I've been living a lie." She started sobbing, pleading with me to give her another chance. "I'll do whatever it takes," she said. "Therapy, counseling, anything. Just don't give up on us." I stood up, pacing the room as I tried to process everything. Part of me wanted to believe her, to hold on to the life we'd built together. But the other part of me, the part that had been betrayed, couldn't let it go. The trust was gone, shattered into a million pieces. "I need time," I finally said, my voice cold. "I need to figure out if I can even look at you the same way again." She nodded, wiping her tears, but I could see the fear in her eyes. She knew this was the beginning of the end. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions. Laura kept her distance, giving me space, but I could feel her watching me, waiting for some sign that I was softening. She texted me constantly, little messages about how much she loved me, how sorry she was, how she'd do anything to fix this. But the more she tried, the more hollow her words felt. I spent most of my time out of the house, walking aimlessly or sitting in my car, trying to sort through the mess in my head. Part of me wanted to believe her, to give her the second chance she was begging for. After all, 10 years isn't something you throw away lightly. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw that message from Alex, that smug look on his face in the cafe, and I knew I'd never be able to forget it. One evening, I came home to find Laura sitting at the dining table, a glass of wine in her hand. She looked up as I walked in, her face pale and drawn. "Jake, can we talk?" she asked softly. I nodded, sitting across from her. "What is it?" She hesitated, then took a deep breath. "I've been thinking a lot about what I've done, about how much I've hurt you, and I need you to know that I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. I love you, Jake. You're my everything." I stared at her, my heart aching. "Laura, do you even understand what you've done?" I asked. "You didn't just cheat, you lied. Over and over again. You made me doubt myself, doubt us. How am I supposed to come back from that?" She reached for my hand, her grip desperate. "I know I messed up, but it was a mistake. I was stupid and selfish, but it doesn't mean I don't love you. Please, Jake, give me a chance to prove it." Her tears were real, and for a moment I almost caved. But then I remembered how easily she had lied to me, how she had smiled at me while texting another man. The trust was gone, and no amount of tears or promises could bring it back. Finally, I said, "She's not the reason I'm leaving." The trust was gone, and no amount of tears or promises could bring it back. "I can't do this, Laura," I said, my voice steady. "I've thought about it, and I can't live like this. The trust is gone, and without it, there's nothing left." Her face crumpled, and she started sobbing. "Please, Jake, don't do this. We can fix this. I'll do whatever it takes." I shook my head, standing up. "I'm filing for divorce," I said firmly. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Laura. But it's not me." She collapsed into the chair, her sobs echoing through the house as I walked upstairs to pack a bag. I couldn't stay in that house any longer. It wasn't a home anymore. It was a reminder of everything I'd lost. As I drove away that night, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. Sadness for what we'd built and lost, and relief for finally taking control of my life again. Leaving wasn't easy, but it was necessary. The next few weeks felt like a blur. Lawyers, paperwork, dividing up assets. I moved into a small apartment on the other side of town, a place that felt quiet and foreign compared to the life I'd built with Laura. But as painful as it was to leave, there was also a sense of peace that came with starting over. Laura tried reaching out a few times after I left. She sent long texts and left teary voicemails begging me to come back, to reconsider. She promised she'd change, that she'd do whatever it took to earn my trust again, but I knew it was too late. Her promises were just words, the same kind of empty reassurances she'd given me while sneaking around with Alex. I didn't reply to her messages, and eventually they stopped. The divorce was finalized a few months later. It was surprisingly civil. Laura didn't fight me on anything, and we agreed to split things evenly. I think she knew that dragging it out would only make things worse. When I walked out of the courthouse that day, holding the final papers in my hands, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. The chapter with Laura was officially closed. Since then, I've been focusing on rebuilding my life. At first, it was hard. Waking up alone, coming home to an empty apartment, trying to figure out who I was outside of our marriage. But slowly, I started to find joy in the little things again. I picked up old hobbies that I'd abandoned over the years. cycling, woodworking, even trying my hand at cooking. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was living for myself. And the cool part about this story is, I even knew what it was. I've also started reconnecting with friends I hadn't seen in years, people Laura had subtly pushed out of my life. They welcome me back with open arms, and their support has been invaluable. It's amazing how much lighter life feels when you're surrounded by people who truly care about you. As for Laura, I've heard bits and pieces about her through mutual friends. Apparently, things with Alex didn't last long after I left. End quote. She's been trying to rebuild her life too, though I can't say I feel much sympathy for her. She made her choices, and now she has to live with the consequences. Looking back, I've realized that Laura's betrayal, as painful as it was, taught me some important lessons. I've learned the value of trust, the importance of listening to my instincts, and the strength it takes to walk away from something that's hurting you. Most importantly, I've learned that sometimes letting go is the only way to find peace. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Tell me what you think about that story. Have a good day, and bye.